Tonight, the world is watching the Middle East as Israel prepares for a possible attack from Iran.
U.S. warships and fighter jets are on their way to the Middle East to deter an all-out war and, in quote, defense of Israel. The show of military might comes amid rapidly soaring tensions in the region following the assassination of top Hamas leader Ismail Haniyeh in Tehran last week, and a rocket strike on Israel's Golan Heights area that killed a dozen children on a soccer field days before.
Imagine being on the ground in Israel and watching that come from next door, the Hezbollah terrorists firing rockets into northern Israel last night. You know, that's one of the terror groups that are funded and basically directed by Iran.
Hezbollah's ongoing aggression and brutal attacks are dragging the people of Lebanon and the entire Middle East into a wider escalation.
The Wall Street Journal does report that Iran told U.S. and Arab diplomats that it didn't care if its counterstrike started a war.
The entire Middle East now is on high alert as the U.S. reportedly believes Iran will directly attack Israel.
The television and broadcast airwaves are now filled with anticipation and sadly the expectation that Iran is about to launch a sustained military attack against Israel. Iranian authorities have already said that they will fire at civilian areas in the Jewish state. This latest round of conflict was sparked by Israel's assassination of a leading terrorist leader while he was visiting Iran. Ismail Haniyeh is to the October 7th massacre of Israelis what Osama bin Laden was to the 9/11 terror attacks more than 20 years ago in the United States. The United States hunted down and ultimately killed bin Laden. Israel has been hunting down and killing the terror leaders connected to the October 7th attack. Last week, Haniyeh, one of the leaders of the Hezbollah terror organization funded by Iran, was eliminated through a remote bomb apparently placed in a guest house months ago. Israeli intelligence, perhaps with help from spies inside Iran, figured out where Haniyeh was staying in his visits to Tehran. And when it became clear that Haniyeh was there again, at 2 in the morning local time, the bomb, apparently hidden in his room, went off and killed the terror mastermind and a bodyguard. The attack, which clearly had some inside help, has humiliated the Iranian regime. Iranian leaders say it crossed a red line and that they will respond to this precise assassination by trying to kill as many Israeli civilians as possible. In April, Iran used attack drones and fired cruise missiles at Israel in response to Israel killing 2 Iranian generals in Syria who were helping terror proxy groups. This time, the Iranian response is expected to be different.
I've been speaking with Israeli defense officials, and they say they are worried this time around because they think they'll get less warning time before the attack is actually launched. Remember, in April, there were drones launched ahead of time, and this gave the Israelis an indication that the attack was underway. The Iranians followed up with cruise and ballistic missiles. This time, if they lead with ballistic missiles or with an attack and barrage from Hezbollah along the border in northern Israel, it could catch the Israelis off guard and overwhelm their air defense systems. So initial reports do indicate that strategic military targets, like the port behind me in Haifa, could be on the target list for the Iranians.
It should be no surprise if the Iranians choose to escalate the conflict. After all, Iran has long spoken about annihilating all of Israel and killing every Jewish person there. The surprise, though, has come with the reaction in some quarters here in the United States. There are more than a few activists who have said that Israel deserves to have Haifa or Tel Aviv, the largest city in Israel, turned into rubble in response to the Haniyeh assassination. It's hard to imagine that anybody in America would have stated online or anywhere else that in the wake of U.S. Navy SEALs killing Osama bin Laden, the United States deserved to be hit in return. And by the way, if any country or group did that to America or American cities in response to the bin Laden raid, the United States would have shown no mercy, none. But the unity and moral clarity in America following 9/11 does not seem to exist these days when it comes to Israel. There are many reasons for it: misinformation, complexities in the Arab-Israeli conflict, and yes, some anti-Semitism. The Jewish state is simply treated differently. But that's a topic for a different video. At this moment, the most important thing to remember is that the Iran-Israeli conflict is straightforward. Iran wants to eliminate Israel and has been funding terror groups throughout the region that have attacked Israel and will try to do so again. Israel is trying to stop these threats, and Israeli citizens have strong disagreements on the best course of action towards Iran and in the Israeli war against Hamas in Gaza. And we saw that just this past weekend.
Israeli police clash with protesters in Tel Aviv, where not even the threat of an Iranian attack could keep them off the streets. They accuse their prime minister of choosing escalation over a hostage deal. But Netanyahu remains defiant and says former Israeli diplomat Alon Pincus increasingly at odds with the US.
He's gone completely rogue, meaning untethered from reality, intent on igniting a regional war, defying the military, defying President Biden.
Israeli diplomats and citizens are free to speak out and protest because Israel is a democracy. Such demonstrations or public pronouncements against the sitting government are not allowed anywhere else in the Middle East. And citizens who try to protest against Hamas or Hezbollah or Assad in Syria or the regime in Iran tend to disappear. But in Israel, the population is divided over Netanyahu, even though the Iranian missiles and bombs that will rain down on Israel will make no distinctions. These are complicated times in the United States and around the globe, but some things, like the Israeli-Iranian conflict, are simple. Iran is a force for evil, period. Israel is not perfect, but Israel deserves to exist, and America's support for Israel against Iran is the moral position and a virtuous one. By the way, Donald Trump appears to be deliberately trying to panic U.S. financial markets.
The Dow's down more than 1,000 points as that global sell-off intensifies.
Experts call it a correction, but according to Donald Trump, stock market's crashing. I told you so. Kamala doesn't have a clue. Biden is sound asleep, all caused by inept U.S. leadership. Check out that video at the link below. It generated a lot of comments on YouTube. One of the most popular is from Benjamin Santiago, who wrote, "This is a correction. Do not panic." Indeed. I look forward to reading your comments about Israel and Iran preparing for all-out war. I'm David Shuster. Thanks for joining us.